All right, today we're doing a reality check. We're going to put some very urgent, very recent predictions about artificial intelligence to the test. A forecast not long ago gave us all a 2-year window to get serious about AI. We're going to see what happened when that forecast slammed into reality just a few short months later. Let's dive in.
So our story really starts with this book, The Axe 8 Moment. When it came out in early 2026, it made a really bold claim that society had just a 2-year window, to take meaningful action on AI before things got away from us. It basically put a deadline on our future.
And that, of course, raises a pretty fascinating question, right? The book's research was locked in January 2026. So if you look at everything that's happened since then, how well did those urgent predictions actually hold up? Was the forecast too dramatic, or maybe not dramatic enough?
So how do we answer that? Well, luckily for us, someone did the work. We're looking at an internal gap analysis that did exactly that. It audited the book's claims against real-world data just 65 days after the fact. So let's get right to the headline finding.
And here it is. The top-line result is, honestly, it's stunning. The audit found that the book's core arguments weren't just right, but that in several key areas, reality had actually exceeded the forecasts. The future, it seems, was arriving even faster than predicted.
And this isn't just a feeling, right? We've got the numbers to back it up. This audit breaks it all down. Out of 27 specific predictions, you can see a big chunk. 14 of them were on track. But look closer. The really important part is that a significant number were already ahead of schedule. This gives us a quantitative look at a future that is clearly accelerating.
Okay, so let's zoom in on that ahead of schedule category, because this is where things get really interesting. This is where the real world is moving faster than even the most urgent predictions were willing to say.
First up, humanoid robots. The book saw them as a future problem, expecting them to be at commercial scale around 2027. Well, the reality? By early 2026, Figure AI's robots were already on the line in a BMW factory. And this isn't some lab demo we're talking about. This is real commercial deployment, happening at least a year ahead of schedule.
So why is this happening so fast? Well, you probably guessed it. It comes down to simple economics. We've now hit the crossover point where the cost of one of these humanoid robots is roughly the same as the annual cost of a human worker. And once you hit that economic tipping point, industrial adoption doesn't just begin, it explodes.
And this leads us to what is maybe the most profound acceleration of all, the timeline to artificial general intelligence, or AGI. You know, AI that can reason and learn just like a human. It wasn't that long ago that experts were saying it was decades away. Now the leaders of the top AI labs in the world have all started to converge on this startlingly close window, 2027 to 2028. That's a mind-blowing compression of the timeline.
And you have to understand, this shrinking AGI timeline, it has immediate, real-world consequences. The disruption to white-collar jobs, we're talking law, medicine, accounting, is now running a full 12 to 18 months ahead of most baseline forecasts. This means the time that professionals and businesses have to adapt is shrinking just as fast. What experts thought was a problem for the late 2020s, it's happening right now.
Okay, but it's not all just a story of pure acceleration. To really get the full picture, we need to look at what's playing out just as predicted, and also where things are a little more, well, complicated.
This summary table from the audit is super helpful for this. You know, on one side, you've got the big confirmations. The geopolitical AI arms race, that Moloch trap, is absolutely real. The energy bottleneck is a huge constraint, and deepfake fraud is exploding. But on the other side, you see the nuances. Huge infrastructure projects like Microsoft's Stargate are actually behind schedule, and some of the safety scores are ticking up, which is a bit of good news.
All right, let's dig into the most important nuance here. And honestly, it's one of the most counterintuitive findings of the whole audit. It's all about the job market. The prediction was crystal clear. The wave of white-collar job displacement has arrived. But then, you see data like this? A major study found that 90% of C-suite executives said AI had no impact on their employment numbers. Now, at first glance, that seems to just completely debunk the dire warnings. So, what is really going on here?
And here's the crucial insight. For the experts, this doesn't contradict the prediction at all. In fact, it confirms something they call the deployment lag model. The best way to think about it is this. First, the incredibly powerful AI capability arrives. Then, there's a lag, a gap of months, maybe even years, while companies figure out how to actually integrate it. The mass job displacement comes after that lag. So the data isn't saying it won't happen, it's telling us we're in the quiet period before the storm.
And make no mistake, while that employment lag is playing out, these other predictions, they are coming true with, frankly, terrifying precision. Epistemic collapse, that breakdown of a shared reality, is happening, backed by a 1,210% surge in AI scams. The Moloch trap, that destructive race to the bottom, is confirmed by the escalating AI arms race. And automatic warfare isn't some sci-fi scenario, it's active in combat zones today.
Okay, so we've looked at the accelerations, the confirmations, the complexities like that deployment lag. What does it all mean? When you put all these pieces together, what does this audit really tell us about that closing window for action?
This, right here, is the central tension the audit reveals. On one hand, the window for us to prepare might be a little wider because of physical bottlenecks, the massive challenge of building data centers and power plants. But on the other hand, the window is dramatically narrower because the core AI intelligence itself is accelerating faster than anyone thought possible. It's a race between physical limits and exponential intelligence.
And that leaves us right here. This real-time audit confirms the fundamental warning. That window for meaningful action, it's closing. The debate really has to shift now. The question is no longer if our societies, our economies, and our institutions must fundamentally adapt to this new reality. The only question left is how.